What's going on, you guys? My name's Ty Knotts, and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns. 5 mysterious photos that cannot be explained. Number 5. Throughout history, there have been countless stories and images that suggest time travel may be possible, although skeptics usually brush evidence off as a hoax or doctored image. Many believers stand by images that allegedly prove time travelers visiting various periods in history. In the 1940s, the quality of photography was relatively low, with black and white grainy photos being the final product. This image was captured in 1941 and went viral around 2010. The photo, taken at an event for the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Canada, shows a crowd of men and women standing beside their cars on the new bridge. At first glance, the image doesn't raise any red flags. The sea of black and white bodies seem like any other photo from this time period. Upon further investigation, though, one person seems to stick out. Near the middle of the photo, one man amongst the crowd appears to be dressed in modern clothing. He's sporting a casual t-shirt with an unknown logo across the front and a pair of odd sunglasses that don't seem to match the time period. Even more strange, if you look down at what he's holding in his hands, you can see what appears to be a modern camera. Even if the camera is not brand new for the present time, it definitely exceeds the technology of the 1940s. This photo gained attention in 2004 when it was first presented to the public. It was featured in the Barlorn Pioneer Museum exhibit, Their Past Lives Here. The museum later went on to digitize the image and publish it online next to other historical photos. Once it hit the web, viewers quickly observed that the young man was dressed in attire much too modern for the 1940s. Of course, many of the theories surrounding this mysterious man involve time travel in some form or another. Through online sharing and discussion, the image received a lot of attention and eventually made its way onto news or blogging platforms such as Fark, Boing Boing, and Forget Tomori. Most of the articles published about the image encourage the concept of time travel, using the man's attire and cameras as evidence. As expected, when believers surfaced, so did skeptics. Skeptics seem to have one important question. If someone were capable of time travel, why would they choose this event to visit? While the reopening of the South Fork Bridge was a big social event in its time, it seems to fall short from important when looking back on it today. Why wouldn't this particular traveler visit a more iconic event? This particular man doesn't seem to be present in any other historical images or events that hold any importance. Another argument from the skeptic's side is that all of the clothing this man is wearing can be explained as appropriate for the 1940s. His shirt logo seems to resemble shirts worn by the Montreal Maroons. His glasses could be a protective pair that, while not popular, did exist, and his camera could be debunked as a small portable camera sold by Kodak at the time. Overall, skeptics explain that this photo more than likely shows a man with an odd sense of fashion for his time, and not a time traveler at all. Even with these explanations, believers stand by the idea that this is proof of time travel, and that skeptics are simply part of the plot to keep such technology hidden from the general public. It was proven that the photo was not doctored, so there's no real way to unveil the truth one way or the other. This image will likely forever be in debate. Number 4. In the Hessdalen Valley in rural central Norway, there occurs a strange light phenomenon that has baffled witnesses and scientists alike for the last 89 years. In the 1930s, witnesses in the area began reporting strange light activity in the sky. At first, reports were vague, but as the activity continued and people began reporting more specific details, the phenomenon gained attention of scientists and researchers. The light show occurs both during the day and at night, either above or below the horizon. The light emits colors of bright white, yellow, and occasionally even red. Along a 7.5-mile stretch across the valley, erratic and seemingly random behaviors make the Hessdalen Lights even more curious. They can last anywhere from a few seconds to over an hour. Movements performed by the lights include shooting across the sky at high speeds, slowly swaying back and forth over a short distance, or sometimes hovering motionless in mid-air. At first, these lights were only seen rarely. Eventually, their presence peaked from December of 1981 up until mid-1984. During this period of high activity, the lights were observed around 15 to 20 times in a single week. Tourists traveled from all over the country during this activity to witness the mysterious lights of unknown origins. Some tourists would stay overnight or days at a time, totally captivated by the unexplainable presence on these displays. In 2010, activity began to slow down, and with each passing year, the lights are seen less and less. For now, they can still be observed around 10 times a week during a peak period. Project Hessdalen was a scientific research campaign started by UFO Norge and UFO Sweden, which ran from 1983 to 1985. Following this, from 1997 to 1998, a group of students, journalists, and engineers came together to perform what was known as the Triangle Project. This group recorded light activity to find that the lights would form a pyramid shape that would bounce up and down over time. The Hessdalen Automatic Measurement Station was implemented in 1998 to register and record this light activity. A later program named EMBLA brought established scientists and interest students together to observe and document the light activity in an attempt to make sense of the phenomenon. Despite these various projects and programs, there have been no answers or explanations confirmed about the origin or causes of these lights. It's hypothesized that they could be anything from gases in the atmosphere combusting to rock particles reflecting in the sky. Again, nothing has been confirmed despite the wide variety of possible explanations. Number 3. Ghost photos are perhaps the most popular form of mysterious media, giving viewers a quick chill down their spine regardless of what they believe. Most ghost photos can be disregarded as fake or the product of a photo development error such as a double exposure, a lens flare, or even damaged film. In some cases, such as this one of the aforementioned explanations seems likely, which is commonly the case with older alleged photos of the paranormal. It may seem as though this old, grainy, black and white photo is nothing more than a typical group photo. Sir Victor Goddard, a retired RAF officer, took this photo of his squadron in 1919 and later published it in 1975. The squadron served in World War I under Goddard's command. 2 days before the group photo, Freddie Jackson, a dedicated air mechanic, was accidentally killed by a faulty plane propeller. Despite his untimely death, it's believed that Jackson made his way into the group photo. On the top row of men, fourth from the left, a clear image of an airman can be seen. However, behind him is where the eerie mystery lies. Behind this man's head, there appears to be a second face. Standing close behind this man, the face can be seen smiling. The ghostly face is quite clear despite the low quality of the photo. After the photo was developed by the photographer and delivered to Goddard, the squadron was instructed to inspect the possibility of paranormal presence. Instantly, the men agreed that the face in the picture was Freddie Jackson. Jackson's funeral was held on the same day this photo was taken, just a few hours earlier. So naturally, the men concluded that Jackson must have been unaware of his death and instinctively attended the required group photo session. Regardless of what you believe about ghostly presences, the original print of this photo was examined and determined to be unaltered. A camera error such as a double exposure could still be an explanation, but in cases such as that, the apparent face would not be so clear and easily identifiable. The fact that every member of the squadron agreed the face belonged to Jackson also plays a major part in arguing against skeptic efforts to explain the photobomb. Though viewers can debate to no end about the paranormal truth of the photo, there's no way to tell for certain if this is or is not the ghost of a fallen brother. Number 2. Mary Hardy Reiser was a 67-year-old woman living in St. Petersburg, Florida at the time of her baffling death in 1951. On July 2nd at 8 a.m., Reiser's landlady stopped by her home to deliver a telegram. Reiser did not answer the door, and after several attempts, the landlady tried the knob, which she described as abnormally hot. She immediately called the police, who later arrived to Reiser's home. The officers on the scene walked in on a gruesome and confusing display. Mary Reiser seemed to have been burned alive in a chair. All that remained of the woman's body was a pile of ashes, her backbone, and her skull. Oddly, her left foot also remained, seemingly untouched by the flames. Even the cotton house slippers she'd been wearing was left unburnt. Nearby plastic items were softened and distorted by the heat of this fire, but they weren't entirely burnt. In fact, it appeared as though the fire occurred in a small area, not spreading along the carpet or other fabric materials in the room. Another odd piece of evidence was the size of Reiser's skull. Her skull had been shrunken by an alarming amount. It was so small, in fact, that it elicited a comment from an official investigator claiming that it was not an illusion due to the removal of facial tissue. Investigators described the skull as small as a teacup. The conditions of Reiser's death baffled and confused investigators and medical examiners for several years, as it seemed impossible for a body to be almost completely cremated by fire that didn't spread elsewhere whatsoever. One medical examiner presumed that Reiser died from something known as the wick effect. The wick effect describes a situation in which clothing on a body mixes with body fat and keeps a fire burning much like a wick. The wick effect is often used to explain the phenomenon of spontaneous human combustion. The FBI eventually hypothesized that Reiser, a frequent sleeping pill user, must have fallen asleep with a lit cigarette, which ignited her nightclothes and initiated the wick effect. Over the years, many have disputed the FBI's ruling. Additionally, the wick effect and alleged occurrence of spontaneous human combustion have been researched and tested all over the world. While there's still been small breakthroughs and few answers, an exact recreation has yet to be accomplished, leaving the theories as nothing more than theories. Number 1. Frequently referred to as Our Lady of Light, Zaytun refers to the supernatural apparition of the Virgin Mary that was witnessed in an area of Egypt in April of 1968. On April 2, 1968, Farak Mohammed Atwa, a Muslim bus driver, was working across the street from St. Mary's Coptic Church when he thought that he caught a glimpse of a young woman standing at the top of the church on the verge of taking her own life. Two men passing the scene claimed they saw a white glow of a female figure. The group called the police in an attempt to save the life of what they thought was a random woman. As police arrived, a crowd began to grow in the street. Officers determined that there was no woman on the roof, and instead, spectators were seeing the reflection of street lamps against the church's bright roof. Crowd members insisted that what they were seeing was very clearly a supernatural apparition resembling the Virgin Mary. The impromptu event lasted a few minutes before the crowd dispersed. A week later, the phenomenon occurred again, once more attracting a small crowd. After this, the sightings began to occur several times a week, sometimes with up to 5 instances reported in a single work week. This marvel continued until 1971. At one point, the church appointed priests and bishops to investigate the matter. This team confirmed that the spirit of Virgin Mary was being seen. After this confirmation, countless images were taken of the apparition and shared in newspapers and magazines all over the country. Police investigators were unable to find any sign that this was a prank or a hoax. The Egyptian government, having no other logical explanation, eventually accepted the apparition as true. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.